We commence our exploration of this fascinating domain with the story of Naomi. Naomi was elated to be accepted into the medical faculty of a renowned university. This achievement is particularly noteworthy given that pursuing higher education in medicine is a rarity in her province. The profession itself is in high demand and is regarded with prestige. Additionally, it offers a respectable salary. However, Naomi's greatest joy was the prospect of finally the city offers a plethora of opportunities, a multitude of entertainment options, and, most importantly, a metro system. In stark contrast, the remote village where Naomi grew up lacked these amenities. However, the desire to become a doctor, a lifelong ambition since childhood, was a constant in her life. She excelled in her studies, with memorization being a relatively straightforward process. Additionally, her physical appearance contributed to her popularity. With her attractive appearance, including a slender figure, and her intelligence, it was unsurprising that she had numerous admirers. She was consistently presented with prospective partners. In her third year, she encountered Stephen. The circumstances were fortuitous. They were walking in the same direction on the street, and he inadvertently collided with Naomi, causing her to drop the numerous books she was carrying for her studies. Stephen, a person of integrity, was unable to simply walk by. Stephen knelt to assist Naomi, and their hands touched over the anatomy textbooks. In that moment, Naomi and Stephen realized they were meant for each other, and a passionate romance ensued. Stephen is worthy of a more detailed introduction. He is naturally handsome with incredible charm and charisma, and he attracted the attention of many young women in the area. However, his upbringing in a cultured family instilled in him the understanding that girls should not be treated as mere playthings for amusement. When he saw Naomi, he knew he was ready to spend the rest of his life with her. Before they knew it, Naomi was standing at her graduation photo session with a beautiful red diploma. On her right hand, she wore a gold medal and an engagement ring. The years passed, and the newlyweds had settled into a routine of family life, work, and home. They had not yet had the opportunity to consider having children, to develop themselves, or to focus on personal growth and not just on household and work issues. Naomi made the decision to start going to the gym. After conducting thorough research, she identified a gym with an impressive array of facilities, including a gym, a swimming pool, and SAA. Initially, Naomi opted to visit the gym 3 times a week. Over time, she began to observe that when she exercised in the gym and then proceeded to relax in the pool, the swimming instructor directed a considerable amount of attention towards her. It was evident that Naomi's presence in the room commanded interest, yet she did not exhibit any indications of seeking a more intimate connection with the instructor. It was later revealed that his name was Vincent, and he embodied the image of the fitness instructor was robust and fairly attractive. His physique was notably muscular and well-defined. Each time Naomi came to the pool, she felt Vincent's gaze on her. She was unable to imagine cheating on Stephen. However, like any woman, Naomi was pleased to realize that men still noticed her and showed genuine interest. Vincent did not give up. At every meeting, he tried to engage her in conversation. He often told inappropriate and crude stories in an attempt to amuse her. Perhaps that could have been the end of it. However, a very unpleasant incident occurred that turned everything upside down. One evening upon returning home from work, Stephen observed that the house was not in a state of cleanliness. The dirty laundry was not washed, and a warm dinner was not prepared for him on the table. He was surprised and somewhat distressed by this situation, which is understandable given that he grew up in a family where the majority of household chores were typically completed by the homemaker, his mother. He conveyed his disquiet to Naomi, who was not fully attentive to his concerns and continued to prepare for her next excursion to the gymnasium. Stephen's reaction was such that Naomi, herself quite emotional, responded with even greater acrimony. The dispute could not be resolved immediately, and Stephen was unable to tolerate the situation. Naomi abruptly terminated the interaction by closing the door and hastily departing for the gym. Upon her arrival at the gym, Naomi attempted to release her pent-up frustration on the punching bag, but this strategy proved ineffective. Overwhelmed by her distress, she sought solace in the pool, where she encountered Vincent. Perceiving that Naomi appeared to be in a state of distress, Vincent approached her to inquire about the source of her discomfort. In a series of events, Naomi found herself in Vincent's bed. Upon returning home, she attempted to act as if neither the argument with Stephen nor the incident with Vincent had occurred. It appeared that Stephen was unaware of what had transpired. Over time, Naomi and Stephen's relationship improved, and she had nearly forgotten the incident. What transpired with Vincent? Her visits to the gym also ceased. However, after a period of time, the disagreeable narrative resurfaced. It became evident that Vincent's moral and professional attributes were deemed unacceptable. He frequently sought to boast about the clients he had managed, particularly in the presence of other men. To seduce, and it so happened that once, while discussing his conquests, he decided to mention Naomi and even managed to take a photo during one of these gatherings. Andre, a close acquaintance of Stephen's, was present and immediately recognized his friend's wife among Vincent's trophies. Andre was faced with a dilemma. On the one hand, he needed to tell Stephen, but on the other, he was concerned that his friend would not believe him and would instead blame him for the situation. Andre was aware that he needed to inform Stephen of the situation, as no man would want to be associated with such behavior. However, Andre was also conscious of the fact that he could potentially destroy a family. He was aware that Stephen and Naomi had a happy marriage and that their family was frequently held up as an example of a successful union. Furthermore, Andre was concerned that he might not be believed and that he would ultimately be held responsible for the consequences of his actions. After several days of deliberation, Andre realized he could no longer remain silent and contacted Stephen to discuss the matter further. During their conversation, he relayed all the information he had personally gathered from Vincent. He even expressed his intention to present the photographic evidence, but Stephen declined, adhering to the conviction that Stephen's trust had been violated. The news of his wife's infidelity with another man was nothing short of staggering. Jim was uncertain about his next steps, unsure of how to proceed at work or at home. He loved Naomi deeply but struggled with the notion of forgiving her infidelity. Stephen, however, could no longer remain silent and decided to directly confront Naomi about the matter. She broke down in tears and confessed everything, seeking forgiveness. She was unable to conceive of a rationale for her actions. Stephen, however, requested that she cease her weeping and asserted that he was willing to forgive her on this occasion. Nevertheless, he made it clear that a repetition of the infraction would result in the irrevocable loss of any further opportunities. Despite his profound affection for her, he was adamant in this stance. Tears flowed once more, but this time they were tears of joy. 4 months later, on Stephen's birthday, he discovered a beautifully wrapped box on his nightstand. In the early morning hours, he shook it, but he was unable to discern what might be inside. It was evident to him that Naomi had prepared this gift for him just as he was about to. Upon opening the gift, he observed Naomi, who extended her congratulations on the occasion and requested that he open the item she had prepared. Stephen proceeded to do so with great care, uncovering a pregnancy test with 2 lines. What transpired next is a narrative in itself, and will be addressed in part 2. Once again, Stephen ensured that his vision was not failing him. Inside the box, he found a pregnancy test with clear lines, indicating that Naomi would soon become a mother. Doubts tormented Stephen. It seemed as though he had forgiven Naomi and given her a second chance. However, at the same time, he did not want to make a mistake. If this was not his child, he was reluctant to accept Naomi as a partner in parenthood. Doubts persisted in Stephen's mind, and he sought immediate resolution. He arranged to take time off from work and proceeded to a private clinic to obtain the tests. After making the necessary arrangements with the doctor, he requested the test. The results were to be ready by the evening. Just a couple of hours later, he received a phone call and a pleasant woman on the other end of the line offered Stephen the opportunity to come to the clinic for the test results, which were already prepared. Upon arriving at the clinic, Stephen proceeded to the doctor's office. With great regret, the doctor informed him that the results were negative. Stephen was informed that he was unable to father children. He was overcome with rage. Stephen thanked the doctor and proceeded towards the exit. A multitude of thoughts swirled in Stephen's mind, which he was unable to control. Upon arriving at work, Stephen began to calm down somewhat, as he always felt comfortable behind the wheel and driving. The opportunity to relax was afforded to him, but a cunning thought crept into his mind. How might he exact revenge on his unfaithful wife? Stephen began to plan his actions, lost in thought as the end of the workday approached. He was heading home to Naomi. As soon as he opened the door, he caught the aroma of braised duck, his favorite dish. On each anniversary of his birthday, Naomi invariably prepared roasted duck. However, the enticing scent could not assuage the anger of the man approaching Naomi, who was attempting to conceal her emotions. He inquired gently as to the paternity of the child in question. Naomi was taken aback by the question and replied that it was, in fact, his. She then held him in a loving embrace and said that he would soon become a father. Unable to tolerate such treatment any longer, Stephen took out the test results from his folder and threw them at Naomi. She looked surprised and began to examine the documents, realizing what they were and what they meant. Confused, Naomi looked at Stephen and began to insist that he asserted that the child within her was, in fact, his. Naomi's pleas for reconsideration were met with indifference. Stephen stated that he had provided her with an opportunity, but she had not accepted it and had subsequently betrayed him. Thereafter, he compelled the distraught Naomi to leave the premises. Subsequently, Stephen struggled to form relationships with women. In truth, his interactions with the opposite sex were consistently tumultuous. To erase the memory of the betrayal, Stephen began to. He initially consumed alcohol in small quantities, but with each passing day, he imbibed more and more. He was indifferent to the fate of Naomi and her child. However, one day, after 7 years, Stephen encountered his former beloved on the street. He saw a young boy by her side. Stephen was momentarily speechless. Then, he saw a replica of himself at the age of 6. The resemblance was striking. Flustered, he was at a loss for words. Naomi, for her part, proposed that they go out to dinner. She introduced the young man standing by her side as Stephen Jr., who joyfully announced his name during the meal. Naomi informed him that she currently resides with her son in a rented apartment and works 2 jobs. However, she does not complain about her circumstances, recognizing that she is responsible for her situation. Stephen, meanwhile, looked at the boy and was unable to comprehend the resemblance. How could it be explained? Why did this child resemble him so strongly? This question remained at the forefront of Stephen's mind throughout the evening as dinner drew to a close. Naomi proposed that he should finally take a paternity test. Stephen was aware that the boy could not be his son and agreed. However, he was still unable to forgive his wife for her infidelity and saw an opportunity to taunt his unfaithful former spouse. On this occasion, Naomi selected a day on which to send hair samples from her son to the laboratory for analysis. Stephen, however, was disconcerted to learn that the results would not be available for 10 days. He was filled with thoughts concerning his inability to have children and the striking resemblance between him and Stephen Jr. He repeatedly examined the boy's photograph, noting further similarities between them. There was something strangely familiar about him. On the specified day, Stephen proceeded to the clinic at an early hour, his hands trembling. He retrieved the package containing the test results, but he was unable to open it. What if the results indicated that the boy was his son? How could Stephen cope with the realization that he had not been a part of his son's life for 7 years? He had been wasting his time in a nearby bar, drowning his sorrows with 100 g of whiskey from the bartender. With slightly steadier hands, Stephen opened the package and began reading the test results inside. Stephen experienced a surge of anger, which prompted him to throw the empty glass against the wall. It was confirmed that Stephen Jr. was, in fact, Stephen's son. Surprised by what he had observed, Stephen decided to verify one final detail. He returned to the clinic and submitted materials to determine if he could have children by the evening. The results were available by the following day. Stephen was astonished to find that everything was normal and that he could indeed have children. He immediately proceeded to his home and then he promptly returned to the clinic where he had taken the test 7 years ago, presenting both the results from 7 years ago and the recent one. He demanded an explanation when the administrator finally approached him. He stated that such a change was possible and suggested that perhaps Stephen could not have children before, but now everything had suddenly changed. Unsatisfied with this response, Stephen began searching for the lab technician who had processed his biomaterials the last time. Upon finding the man, Stephen learned that someone from the clinic. It is possible that a few test tubes were switched by mistake. Such occurrences are not uncommon, as mistakes are an inherent part of human nature. It is therefore possible that Stephen received the results of another man's test. The error had a significant impact on Stephen, resulting in a loss of years with his son, health issues due to alcohol consumption, and the sacrifice of his career. Additionally, he had to face the pain of losing the woman he loved. In the years that followed, Stephen regained his composure and called Naomi to propose a meeting. She accepted, inviting him to her residence. She purchased a bottle of champagne and a bouquet of flowers for the occasion. Stephen arrived at Naomi's apartment and presented her with the champagne and flowers. He began to apologize, but Naomi promptly stopped him, stating that she was equally at fault and suggesting that they leave all grievances in the past. Stephen gladly accepted, immediately proposing that Naomi and Stephen Jr. move in with him. During their conversation, Stephen learned that Naomi had never married because she had been waiting and hoping for the day when Stephen would come to his senses and return to her and their son. They could talk for hours, and it seemed as if Stephen and Stephen Jr. had lived side by side their whole lives, understanding each other effortlessly. On another birthday, Stephen went to work carrying a small box with an unknown contents that Naomi had given him in the morning. She had asked him not to open it, deciding that he had had enough. Unexpected surprises. Stephen chose not to tempt fate and refrain from opening the gift prematurely. Upon his return home, he was enveloped in the familiar and beloved aroma of braised duck. Entering the room, he heard birthday wishes from Stephen J. and Naomi. Stephen embraced his wife and son, realizing that at that moment he was the happiest person on the planet. As we conclude our journey into the world of human relationships, please remember to subscribe, like, and share our content. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next story.